Day. And we are just learning that CBS News has called Donald Trump to win the state of Texas.
And thanks for joining us for CBS19 Plus Election Night Show. I'm Mariah Condiff. Now, the fate of thousands of elected officials across the country lie in the hands of voters at every level of government. Of course, what everyone is watching, though, is the presidential election, and here in Texas, the Senate race between incumbent Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. We'll get to all of that in just a second, but first we want to give you an overview of what you can expect over the next couple hours.
Three things to know right now. We will be giving you the latest updates on the Senate race here in Texas, as well as going through each local race we are following and providing context on the candidates you voted for. We will bring in our live panel of election experts comprised of political experts from across our East Texas universities. We can assure you no other media outlet here in East Texas has a bigger election coverage plan than we do.
That's right. So tell your friends to tune in right now. We also have Cruz stationed at watch parties in Smith County. Robert De La Garza and Jesus Martinez are at the Republican watch party at Rick's on the Square. And Ayanna Aird is live from the Democratic watch party at Culture ETX. They'll be interviewing candidates as we get results pouring into our newsroom. Now, this, of course, is considered a historical election. Whatever happens could have a significant impact on our political landscape as we know it. On the Democratic ticket, we have the first female vice president running for president. And on the Republican side, former President Donald Trump wants his old job back. This would mark Trump's third presidential bid after losing in 2020. A comeback would make him the first president to attempt to return to office after losing re-election in modern U.S. history. Now, as results continue to pour in, let's begin by getting a government class refresher. Brennan, as we know, the United States uses the Electoral College to pick the president, but what is that and how does it work?
Yeah, Mariah, it's a simple fact that it's easily forgotten. The winner of the presidential election isn't picked based on how many votes a nominee gets. It comes down to the Electoral College. But how does the Electoral College actually work? Let's take a closer look. Why does the United States use the Electoral College to pick the president? The founding fathers were split. Should Congress choose the president, or should it be left to the people? The use of electors was the solution. When you cast your vote for president, you're deciding which electors will represent your state. The number of electors in each state is determined by how many seats in Congress the state has, and that number is based on the state's population. So, for example, let's look at California. Every state has 2 senators. So right off the bat, that's 2 electors. California, the most populous state, has 52 representatives in the House. So the Golden State gets 54 total electors. Whichever candidate wins, California gets all 54 electoral votes. There are 538 total electoral votes, 535 for the state and 3 for the District of Columbia. 48 states are winner-take-all. Maine and Nebraska give 2 electoral votes to the statewide winner and 1 for the winner of each congressional district. A simple majority of 270 electoral votes is needed to win. If neither candidate gets to 270, the House of Representatives will determine the president, but each state delegation, regardless of the number of electors, must vote as one. So there are only 50 votes up for grabs. The Senate will determine the vice president with a simple majority vote of all 100 senators. The popular vote winner has lost the Electoral College in 2 of the last 6 elections, and that has prompted calls to switch the popular vote system, but that requires a constitutional amendment.
Right. Let's get a quick check on the presidential race. Now, keep in mind, even though polls have closed here in the state of Texas, we're still waiting for results in several states along the West Coast. In California, polls close at 10 p.m. Hawaii closes polls at 11 p.m. and Alaska voters have until midnight to cast their ballots. Now, here's what it's looking like right now. Kamala Harris at 45% of the votes, and Donald Trump has 54% of the votes.
And like we told you at the top of this streaming, that Donald Trump actually just won the state of Texas. We'll, of course, be following that race. On this election day, it's not just the presidency being decided, but also the balance of power in Congress. With all 435 House seats and a third of the Senate on the line, whichever party wins the majority will have a big influence on what a future Harris or Trump administration can accomplish.
That's right. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland explains why he and likely most election watchers are keeping a close eye on what's going on here in Texas.
This will be a night of cliffhangers and a night of math. For Democrats, they have a limited margin of error to keep their majority in the U.S. Senate, which would mean so much to a future President Harris or future President Trump, who controls the Senate and confirmations of the Supreme Court, and of cabinet nominees. Democrats are playing defense in a lot of places that Trump won in 2020. Ohio, Montana, West Virginia, and battleground states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If they lose any one or two of those races, they need to pick off a Republican to keep their majority. And they think their prospects of doing that are best in Texas, where Ted Cruz had a narrow victory in 2018, beating Beto O'Rourke by about 3 points. Democrats are bullish on their candidate, Colin Allred, the congressman from Dallas, the former NFL star who has high name recognition statewide in Texas. It won't just be local voters, local politicians watching this race play out as the night goes on. The eyes of Democrats and Republicans across the nation know if Democrats can win this seat, it changes the math in those battleground states. Scott McFarland, CBS News, New York.
And the race remains extremely competitive between Senator Ted Cruz and Congressman Colin Allred. As they both continue to go after each other's records, there's no question that Cruz and Allred have the attention of the nation.
Yeah, this race has been dubbed the most expensive in the country. Donors have poured millions of dollars into the Texas race, specifically Democrats, as the valuable Senate seat is possibly up for grabs.
And taking a look at early data, you can see right now that Ted Cruz is sitting at 52% versus Colin Allred at 46%. Now, like we mentioned before, back in 2018, Ted Cruz was facing off against Beto O'Rourke, and that was also a tight race where it was about a 2-point difference between the two. This race, again, neck and neck.
Right. Let's get right out to our Jesus Martinez, who's been watching this race closely for us here at CBS 19. Jesus, he spoke to Allred just yesterday and had the chance to catch up with Cruz the last time he was in East Texas. So, Jesus, what can you tell us about the candidates and how things are unfolding tonight?
Hey, I'm Ryan Brennan. Both candidates for the U.S. Senate representing Texas are trying to buy the vote of the Texans, especially here in East Texas. They've been here quite a few times, a handful of times, either ranging from Nacogdoches, Crockett, Tyler, Marshall, Longview. They've been all over these past couple of days with the campaign. Ted Cruz on Keep Texas Texas, his campaign tour, already on his defense campaign is what he's calling it, a reference to his former football day. I'm here in Smith County at the Republican Watch Party, and I can just sort of give you a little view right now. A lot of people here calm and not too worried about the election for this Senate race so far. The elections have come up, or the preliminary results have come up on the screen, so we're keeping an eye on those. You guys mentioned this is the most expensive race, and almost one of the most expensive races in the entire country. Both campaigns raising about $160 million together. Now, as you guys mentioned, I got a chance to speak with both of them not too long ago. Colin already spoke to him yesterday. Ted Cruz last time he was here in East Texas, and they explained why East Texas is so vital for them in this race.
Look around your community in East Texas and you see work happening working on your roads, on your bridges. It's likely that I helped make that happen, and that happened in spite of Ted Cruz. And I want East Texans to know that.
I would not have been reelected without the good men and women of East Texas. I spend a lot of time up here. I will continue to spend a lot of time up here. And in this election, look, I'm calling on the people of East Texas. You need to show up. You need to vote.
Yeah, Ted Cruz has been representing the state of Texas since 2013, a little over a decade at that. And you guys mentioned Beto O'Rourke. That was his last challenger back in 2018, the last time Cruz's seat was up for grabs. Now, this is the third time, if Cruz wins, that he will be in office, seeking his third election term. And like you guys mentioned, a tight race here. So far, early voting is leading on the Cruz campaign's side, and we'll continue to follow this race, get reaction from local Republicans here as well.
Senate race, Jesus.
And the Texas Senate race is one of the most significant of the 2024 election. Texas has long been a Republican stronghold, but shifting demographics and a more competitive political landscape make this race a key battleground.
A win for Democrats could signal a major realignment in the state, potentially impacting control of the Senate. With high-profile candidates and national implications, the outcome of this race could shape the future of U.S. politics. Let's bring in our first political expert of the evening, Dr. Ken Wing from UT Tyler. Now, Dr. Wing, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Actually, we're experiencing some technical difficulties right now, so we're just going to kind of to go over a little bit more of this race. So as we mentioned, if Ted Cruz were to win the Senate, this would make his third term, right, Brennan?
That is correct. So last time that we saw this was back in 2018, and looking at early numbers right now, like we heard from our Jesus Martinez, who's been following this race closely, Ted Cruz is sitting at 52% versus Colin Allred at 46%. You know, a lot of these experts that have been also following this race thought this was going to be even a closer race. We know Texas usually swings towards red and more Republican. And so that's kind of what we're seeing right here that's transpiring.
Yes, absolutely. Now, if you guys didn't know, Ted Cruz is actually the first Hispanic American to represent Texas in the Senate. Now, key issues for him are he opposes abortion, opposes gun control, he's against transgender athletes competing in sports, and he is a proponent of school choice. We're going to go ahead and put in Dr. Ken Wink here with UT Tyler, our first political expert of the night, to talk more about this. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Wink.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you've been closely tracking the Texas Senate and the presidential races through your polling at UT Tyler. What are some of those key trends or shifts that you've observed in Texas voters this election season?
Well, about 2 weeks ago, we had Trump up by 5 and Cruz up by 2. The Cruz race looked very, very close. With a little over half the votes in, it's not quite as close as we thought it would be. And if they've already called it for Trump and Cruz is ahead by 5 points or so, that's probably a very good sign for Cruz.
And Dr. Wink, there's a staggering new number of voters who have moved into the state. So how does that come into play with these races?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. We know historically people moving to the state back in the 1980s contributed to the Republican realignment in the state. But I think there's probably a more even split among recent immigrants into Texas from other states. Greg Abbott, a few years ago, said that he thought it was a plus for the Republicans. I'm not so sure, but that's the big question. When people move here from California, do they bring California with them, or do they become Texans?
That's right. Now, shifting things back to the Senate race, we have Colin Allred and incumbent Ted Cruz. Now, as we've seen, the last time Cruz defeated O'Rourke narrowly, and we're kind of expecting the same thing here with Allred as well. But it looks like Colin Allred may possibly, according to experts, have a closer race than Beto O'Rourke did. What is the reason for that? Is it timing? Is it the campaign? We know that Democrats have been donating a lot in support of him this year. What's the reason for that?
Well, I think Colin Allred is a good candidate. He's very viable. He's a likable guy. He's attracted a lot of support around the country in terms of money, as you mentioned. I think Ted Cruz is not quite as popular as Trump in the state, but on the other hand, Cruz has a way of pulling out these close elections. And even though we had this election pretty close, Cruz is doing better than I thought he would. And, you know, there's still quite a lot of votes to count, but he is doing rather well tonight.
Do you have any kind of surprise prediction in any of the races here at the Lone Star State?
I don't think so. Another one I am interested in is the U.S. House district down in, I think it's House District 15, which is I think it's the Monica de la Cruz district. That is the one House district that is very, very close. Could go either way. We've got a Republican incumbent who was polling up by about 3 points a month ago. But again, considering the national implications, that's a seat that the Republicans need to keep if they want to keep control of the U.S. House at the national level.
For sure. And speaking of the Republicans, how many of the early voting ones do you think might split their vote when it comes to president or the U.S. Senate race?
Well, I think we do see a little bit of a split. Obviously, Trump is running a little bit higher margins than Cruz is, so people are doing some split ticket voting. Our polling also showed that Trump was more popular among independents and Latinos even than Ted Cruz was. But as I said, Allred is a very solid candidate. We shouldn't be too surprised. But again, I would not be surprised if Cruz pulled it out before the night is over.
And Dr. Wink, we know your expertise is in polling. We've seen on social media, of course, the outcry of how polling and how confident people are in the polling. How confident are you in polling? I know you've been doing this in several elections.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident. I will say it is an interesting thing. I've actually been on the phone myself and talked to people. And you know, before the days of Trump, it was pretty easy to get people to answer polls. But in the era of Trump, what I would say is that people are more hesitant to answer polls. It is really hard to get people to complete those polls, and you never know if you're disproportionately contacting Democrats or Republicans. So it's a little bit less precise than it was, I would say, 10 years ago, even.
Like you mentioned, you were on the phone talking to voters here. Is this just in East Texas where you're doing this polling, or is this across the country?
Well, we're polling in the state of Texas. We're only polling registered voters in the state of Texas, looking at statewide races in Texas, the president's race and the governor's, and I should say the U.S. Senate race this time around.
The state of Texas usually leans towards Republican. So when you're talking to those voters, when you're polling them, what are they telling you?
Well, I have to say we've started contracting out the polling over the last couple of years, but I learned a lot in the days when we were actually calling on our campus. Some you just have to get people to answer the phone, and once you're convinced they are convinced that you're a university, you're not polling for any of the candidates, you're not polling for any of the parties. You can a lot of times get them to finish the poll, but you got to get them to answer the phone in the first place. And as you know, people just don't do that as much anymore. But I found out about a lot about human nature. Some people will tell you more than you want to know. And I have met some really colorful characters in the past talking to people on the phone.
Awesome. Well, we know nationwide the important issues, or some of them would be abortion, reproductive rights, and border control. But it looks like here in Texas, school choice is also a really important issue, and it's kind of seemingly divided the Republican Party. Some Republicans are in favor of school choice, others are opposed to it. Does that have any impact on the races, both here locally with our Republican candidates and also Ted Cruz, because he is in favor of school choice?
Yeah, I don't think so. In a national election, when the presidency is on the line, it's really about national level issues. I think the Republicans in the state legislature will be squabbling over this in the spring for sure. But you know what our polling found is that people really were interested in abortion, and about equally on both sides, by the way, not just reproductive rights, but also concerned about the need for the state regulating abortion. And we found that border security was very important and inflation was very important. Those were those were the big three the entire time we were polling, which was in, I think, February, June, and October.
And Dr. Wink, we had early voting open up for 2 weeks. We know we had a record turnout as we've been reporting here at CBS 19. But what does that early turnout say about this race?
Well, you have to figure out who's turning out. It does seem that Republican early voting turnout was heavier this year than it was in 2020. I don't think overall it was heavier, but Republicans, I think learn from 2020, get out there and do the early voting. The Trump people really emphasized that this time. But what you never know till election day is, are you cannibalizing your own voters? That is to say, are you now just having people who would have voted anyway, voting early instead of voting on election day? You don't really know that till the votes are counted. But one thing you do know is when people say they're going to early vote and they actually do it, that vote is in, that vote is counted. When people say, I'm going to vote on election day, they may or may not. So I think Republicans were pretty happy to see those early voting trends in Texas this year.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Wink from UT Tyler.
All right, we appreciate your insight. We'll be right back after a short break.
Good evening. Here at CBS 19, we are your East Texas election experts. And over an hour ago, polls closed across the U.S. and votes are being tallied right now.
Well, let's get a check at some of the big ticket spots up for grabs tonight, starting with the race for Smith County Commissioner seat for Precinct 3. In Smith County, residents in Precinct 3 will have a new commissioner. Incumbent Terry Phillips lost to Republican challenger J. Scott Herod during the March primaries after 15 years as commissioner. Herod is now taking on Edith Mayfield Wilson for that position. At this time, Herod is at 80% and Wilson is at 20%.
All right, that is District 4 up there. Let's take a look at District 7. It represents Gregg, Harrison, and Marion counties. Incumbent Jay Dean has held the position since 2017. Democratic challenger and businesswoman Marlena Cooper is looking to change that. At this time, Jay Dean is ahead at 73%, that is, and Cooper is at 27%.
Oh, now let's head over to Upshur County, where residents are voting on the sheriff's position. Sheriff Larry Webb has held that position since 2017 and has worked in other areas of law enforcement across the region prior to being the sheriff. But challenger Brandon Williams is looking to unseat him. Right now, Webb is at 83% and Brandon Williams is at 17%.
Yep. In Gregg County, Precinct 1 through 7 residents are voting on Proposition 1, which is the legal sale of all alcoholic beverages, including mixed beverages. So far, no results are in for that race, but we'll keep you posted on the numbers for who are for and against it.
And of course, we have to hit the hot ticket item on the Texas ballot, the U.S. Senate race. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz is vying for his third term. He is facing Dallas Congressman Colin Allred. And as they both continue to go after each other's records, there's no question that Cruz and Allred have the attention of the nation. At this time, Cruz is heading at 52% and Colin Allred 46%.
We'll continue to have live updates throughout the night as more results roll in. For the latest on local and state races, head to CBS 19 Plus for our streaming show that ends at 10 tonight.
And for more on the presidential race, CBS News will continue to bring you the latest on the election coverage after this short break. Stay with us.
Good evening, East Texas. We just took a short break for our broadcast viewers. So if you know anyone out there that's been watching us here for those little commercial breaks, tell them to go ahead and download our streaming platform, CBS19's, where we're live for the next 2 hours.
We are locally. We have been following significant races across East Texas, and really what we want to focus on is House District 6. That is a race between Daniel Alders and Cody Grace. But we're going to go and check in now with, or first look at how that race is shaping up right now. Daniel Alders, the Republican in this race, is up 74% versus Cody Grace, who is currently sitting at 26%. We want to go to check in now with Robert De La Garza, who's live in downtown Tyler. Robert, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so we're out here at the Ricks on the Square for the Republican Watch Party. I mean, the vibes are pretty crazy. There's a lot of people here. They said that they expected 70 to 100 people. I think they met that or exceeded expectations today. But right now we have a Republican candidate for for House District 6, Daniel Alders, that is, who is joining us live just in one moment. But, you know, we had a chance to look at the early voting polls. I know you just mentioned there, but looking at about a 50-point margin at this point. So Cody, against his Democratic challenger, Cody Grace, that is. You know, let's go ahead and look over to Daniel Alders right now, who has a comfortable lead over Cody Grace. So, I mean, right now, just as we're talking, I mean, we have seen updated polls. I mean, just what are we feeling like right now as the day moves on and you have a pretty comfortable lead?
Well, Robert, you heard it in the room. They just announced Senator Cruz has won the state of Texas. I think Fox News has called that race. So Republicans are energized. We've seen this over the course of the fall. We've seen this over the last 2 weeks of early voting. And today, on Election Day, we're excited about defending our values here in the state of Texas. And honestly, I believe we're going to see that across the country. We saw it here in Smith County. HD6 has showed up, voted for East Texas values, and I'm honored, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to represent House District 6 and Smith County voters in Austin next year.
Okay, yes, so we've heard, you know, we're still waiting for polls to come, but you got a comfortable lead. I mean, what's it look like for the next couple days? I mean, big picture here, how, you know, what can we expect?
Sure, well, step one was winning tonight, and so now we begin to put together a plan to make changes in the Texas legislature to continue the conservative fight in Austin, to make sure that Austin is less involved in our lives here in East Texas. East Texans want to be able to work, they want to earn a living, they want to be able to keep most of what they earn, and they want the government to stay the heck out of the way. And so we're going to begin putting a plan together, filing legislation that increases and pushes forward a conservative agenda in 2025, and I look forward to doing that.
Okay, U.S. House District 6 candidate, Republican candidate. We're going to continue to follow this race as we go out throughout the evening. But you know, following this race along with other local races in this area, that talking to more Republicans who are here at the Ricks on the Square tonight. So back to you guys down there in CBS.
Downtown Tyler, following that race closely. We just heard from Alders talking about how the Fox actually just called that Ted Cruz has won the state of Texas. We also mentioned earlier that Donald Trump has also won the state of Texas as well. No surprise really from that, but I think more so a lot of people, a lot of experts have been following a U.S. Senate race because it was supposed to be a pretty close race.
Yeah, similar to 2018 with Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. We are waiting to confirm with CBS News and AP News on those projections, though. But Alders, pretty impeccable win there against his challenger Cody Grace, who has been trying to get that seat for a few times here. If you were unfamiliar with Alders, though, he is really big on cracking down on border security as well as supporting school choice. He opposes DEI as well. And if you didn't know, Alders works in real estate.
And we want to talk about his challenger, which we know our Anna Aird has been following this race closely. His Democratic challenger, Cody Grace, he's been a Democratic. We're actually now going to check in with our Anna Aird, who's in downtown Tyler with Cody Grace. Ayana, what are we hearing right now from Cody Grace?
Yes, Brennan and Mariah. I have Cody Grace here with me. He is the Democratic candidate for House District 6, and like you said, he did run for the same seat back in 2022. Cody, how are you feeling as the results come in?
Still feeling really good. A lot of results have started to come in, so we have more of a clear picture of what's happening in Texas. Not really sure what's happening in Smith County currently. They haven't released the results of the Election Day polls, so we're just anxiously optimistic about what's happening in those polls.
And as I mentioned, you did run in 2022, so what keeps you going and how do you hope to shape East Texas?
I don't believe that any candidate should put their name on a ballot and just instantly be in office. I think every race should be contested because that's how there's a trial by fire. There has to be an election process so voters get to decide who is going to represent them.
And so what is your continued plan for tonight as we get deeper into elections and as results continue to roll in?
We're going to stay here until all the Texas is called, every race in Texas is called, and then we're going to watch this presidential race, and we're just going to go from there.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to y'all.
And we just heard from her, obviously, that Cody Grace is behind right now versus Daniel Alders. He's obviously waiting for those results to still trickle in because those ballots are still being counted as we are an hour and a half since those polls closed.
Awesome. We're going to go ahead and head back over and find out more on the Texas Senate race, which is dubbed the most expensive campaign in the nation. Right now, we are looking to learn more about those numbers because we're hearing that there could be a potential lead in that case right now. Let's see. Yeah, right now it looks like Republican incumbent Ted Cruz is sitting at 52% of those votes. Colin Allred, the Democratic challenger out of Dallas, is sitting at 46% of the votes. So it doesn't seem like it's looking too close just right now. It's not too bad. Votes are still coming in. We're still, like we mentioned, waiting to find out the final outcome of this race here to see if Cruz is going to keep his seat. Awesome.
Alrighty, we want to go and check in now with our Jesus Martinez, who is joined by the Smith County Republican Chairman David Stein. And Jesus, what does he have to say about what we've seen so far in the outcome of these races?
Yeah, so far right now, David Stein is mingling among other people here at Rick's, which is the Republican Watch Party. Maybe about 5-10 minutes ago, another news organization called the race for Cruz. Whenever that happened here, the whole room obviously erupted in cheer as Republicans supporting Ted Cruz as the incumbent. But he got on stage to let everyone here know that the Ted Cruz campaign, their manager, had a message for them. And basically, the Cruz campaign wanted East Texas, or wanted to let them know that East Texas, that they wanted to thank them for coming out and supporting them and coming out in waves to vote for Cruz. And then obviously we're still waiting on David Stein. He's about to do another speech in a little bit. But that's the message he had that the Cruz campaign gave him is, hey, saying thank you East Texas for coming out and voting. I also spoke to Nathaniel Moran not too long ago. He's the U.S. Congressman representing portions of East Texas. And sort of along the same lines before that announcement was made, he said, Ted Cruz is not Colin Allred, and Colin Allred is not Ted Cruz, and he's happy to work with Ted Cruz as he has in Congress. Obviously, Ted Cruz in the Senate, Nathaniel Moran in the House, still hand in hand working together. And he mentioned that's something that they will continue to do if Cruz is reelected. But for now, we're going to wait on the Republican chair, David Stein, to see if he can come over in a little bit and talk to us more about that message that the Cruz campaign gave him. But for now, we're going to send it back to you guys.
We look forward to hopefully hearing from David Stein here in a little bit. Now, meanwhile, the next race we're following is one that represents parts of Gregg, Harrison, and Marion counties.
And that's House District 7, a seat Jay Dean has held since 2017, and he's obviously wanting to hold his seat. He talked a little bit about what he hopes to do if he is reelected. He wants to reduce property taxes, he wants to strengthen border security, and improve public education. The former Longview mayor is a strong supporter of public school funding. He's not openly for the school voucher system. Governor Greg Abbott hopes to implement this legislative session.
Meanwhile, Democratic challenger Marlena Cooper is also against the school voucher program, and her campaign is focused on improving rural health care, an issue at the core of many East Texas voters. Robert De La Garza sat down with both candidates, who explains who they are and what they want to change for East Texans.
House District 7 serves approximately 200,000 East Texans. Incumbent Republican Jay Dean faces off against Democratic candidate Marlena Cooper. Dean, a former city council member and mayor of Longview, is looking to secure his 5th term as a state representative. Dean says his past roles and experiences make him qualified for this position.
That further helped me broaden my understanding of what was really important to our community.
Marlena Cooper will be the first Democratic challenger for this seat in 30 years. If elected, she aims to achieve a significant list of milestones.
First person from Jefferson to ever run, first time for a woman, first time for an African American, a lot of firsts going on here, and I'm excited about that. And
Cooper embraces the motto, "Keep Texas True."
Parties are one thing, but I am East Texan first, and that means a lot to me.
A true East Texan from the district she's campaigning for.
Everybody here is a part of my family and has been a part of, grooming me and molding me to make me who I am.
She says she is prioritizing education, reliable broadband internet access for all residents, and support for rural health care. While Dean emphasizes his focus on border security, reducing property taxes, and improving workforce development through education. Both candidates strongly oppose school vouchers. Dean says they could have a potential negative impact on rural public schools.
We don't want to have a brain drain of the best and brightest kids from our great rural public schools just because their parents want to take voucher money and go over to a private school.
You need to be writing a trigger bill that says if this happens, we're going to do this. Or you need to be funding, again, the per pupil dollar amount to bring that up to make sure that our school districts have what they need.
Some final words from the candidates before the final day of voting.
People know what they have in my candidacy. They know that they can trust me to do what I say I'm going to do.
It's time, and we deserve better. And so I am from East Texas, so I am fighting for East Texans all the way across the board.
Reporting from Longview, Robert De La Garza, CBS 19.
All right, well, we're going to take a look at those results on where they stand for State Representative District 7. Jay Dean is right now with 73% versus Marlena Cooper at 27%.
That's right. Well, we are getting word that our Jesus Martinez has caught up with David Stein, and we're going to go ahead and send things over to him live to kind of get a reaction of how Republicans here in East Texas are feeling tonight. Jesus?
Yeah, so here with me I have David Stein. He's the Republican chair for the Smith County Party. David, thank you so much. I know you're very busy right now with everyone and interviews and everything. But first off, I know a news organization called the race for Senator Cruz already. Tell us what that feeling was like whenever that was called and you guys saw that on the screen.
It's tremendously exciting. We've done well locally. We thought we would, and it's hit right where we thought it would be. I was hopeful on a lot of our state races for our judiciary, the Supreme Court candidates, Court of Appeals, Railroad Commissioner. Those are hitting really, really good numbers. Those are a little bit better than expected, 57, 58. But when we got the numbers on Senator Cruz, it was over the top. I've known him a while, and it's been a pleasure to watch his career. He's been up here a number of times in Smith County. When he was here last time, I promised him we would get him a voter turnout, and we did. And that helped put him over the top. But to see a 7-point spread, it's ecstatic. It's a good night for Republicans in Smith County right now.
And that's something you touched on a little bit after you guys saw those numbers and that result. You went on stage and you said you had a personal message from the Cruz campaign.
Correct. So Adam Lester is Senator Cruz's campaign director for Texas. So I texted him and just said, hey, congratulations, job well done. And he texted me back and just said, thanks for everything you guys did in Smith County. And he appreciated all of the work of everybody here. So Senator Cruz has been here a bunch. He came here probably 5 times in the last month and a half. He knows how much Smith County cares for him and the job that he's doing in the Senate. But it was important to me to communicate to the group that they knew what we did here.
And I know you spent a good chunk of the evening, mingling and talking to people here. What are their reactions from obviously the Senate race, but also the presidency that we're still expecting a call on?
It's exciting. Winning is exciting. It's infectious. And so when you work hard for something and you put a plan together, well, planning is one thing, But if you don't execute on the plan, well, your efforts are in vain. I mean, look, if you don't win, if you don't play to win, why play? And so we're here to win these races. And so the excitement from people, the number of people that were here early starting out, I've never seen that many people here this early and staying this late. Usually the room is clearing out by now, and it's not. These folks are excited about what's happening in Smith County. And think about how lucky we are. We have in this room our congressman, our state senator, our outgoing state rep, our incoming state rep, our county judge, our district attorney, our district judge. Everybody's here because they care about this county.
Awesome. David Stein, Republican chair of the Smith County Party. Thank you so much for that insight. And we look forward to speaking to everyone else here tonight.
And hopefully we can announce it's President Trump that won.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mariah, Brennan, back to you.
Alrighty, Jesus, and I want to mention, I know we are still waiting for CBS News to call that race, but Governor Greg Abbott mentioned on social media, Mariah, that he put out a congratulations to President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance on their overwhelming victory in Texas. He says, quote, Texans have spoken. They want strong conservative leaders who will prioritize economic growth and securing our border.
All right, thank you so much for finding that. We look forward to finding out those official results for sure.
Well, let's move on to House District 8. Cody Harris is looking to continue serving as a key lawmaker representing Anderson, Cherokee, and parts of Henderson County. He's been the incumbent since 2019, and he's also an opponent of the school voucher program.
That's right. Most recently, Harris has been outspoken about supporting Nikki and her family. She's the toddler who was killed by her father, Robert Robertson, the East Texas death row inmate back in the early 2000s. Now, his story has resurfaced as his execution was halted just weeks ago. Early reporting numbers are showing Harris with an 83% percentage of those votes, and he's leading Carolyn Salter with just 17% of those votes that are in right now. She's the Democratic challenger. Salter is a former mayor of Palestine and a physician. She is for expanding Medicaid and a strong opponent of Texas abortion laws.
Well, thanks for staying with us for our CBS 19 election night coverage. I'm Brennan Gurley.
And I'm Mariah Condiff. As the polls close across the nation, all eyes are on 7 key battleground states. Now, these states could, of course, determine who will be the next president of the United States.
Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These are the states both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have been spending majority of their time. So, what is a battleground state and how does a state become one?
Well, it's pretty simple. It's when voters are almost evenly divided politically heading into the election, which means both parties see a chance to win that state. Let's look at the latest CBS polling for those 7 swing states. We got Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. They have the same results. Trump leading Harris 50-48. Michigan and Wisconsin lean the other way with Harris leading 50-48. Then Nevada and Pennsylvania are showing a dead tie at 49% each. Now, if you remember, our political expert, Dr. Ken Wink, definitely said that the state needed in this race is Pennsylvania right now. So the fact that it's neck and neck right now at 49% means it's going to be a close one. All of these are within the margin of error, though.
A race this close can not just break either way, but can break very large in a direction either way because there's so many factors.
Absolutely. In this election, it will all come down to the turnout, though. So let's go ahead and take a quick check on the presidential race. Keep in mind, even though polls have closed here in Texas, we're still waiting for those results in several states along the West Coast. In California, polls close at 10 p.m. Hawaii closes polls at 11 p.m. and Alaska voters have until midnight to cast their ballots. So here's what it's looking like right now. Kamala Harris so far is coming up with some percentage of votes here against Donald Trump as well. Be sure to take a look at those numbers soon. We haven't had them updated as of yet.
Well, now we want to go ahead and bring in our second election expert, Dr. John Barrett from LeTourneau University. Dr. Barrett, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Barrett, we just heard from the Republican Smith County Chairman David Stein with a win for Ted Cruz over Colin Allred. What are you looking at right now in terms of the races?
Well, I think all eyes right now, of course, are on Pennsylvania because that is probably a must-win state for both campaigns. You know, still looking at results coming from North Carolina and Georgia. Trump is obviously ahead there. a good bit of the vote is in, but still a good bit left to come in. So a lot of people are going to be looking at that to see, okay, how are those going to break one way or the other?
For sure. I know your eyes are glued to your TV screen right now as those results come in. Do you have any prediction with the expertise that you have on who might win that presidential race between Harris and Trump?
You know, it's very difficult to make a prediction. You know, there's the polling data has been so close, and there's all these attempts to create models, and the models kind of move a little one way or the other way. So I don't know that I'd want to make an official prediction, but it is a very close race, and it may be a very late evening.
You know, talking in terms of these races we're seeing here locally, have you seen any innovative strategy-wise in this election cycle that you haven't seen before?
You know, it's kind of interesting because it seems like every 4 years we'll see Democrats, you know, employ some different strategies to try to gain some ground on Republicans, and they just don't seem to really ever quite get there. Again, Beto O'Rourke, you know, when he was running, he was trying to emphasize kind of the progressive credentials and try to get the base fired up, and that fell short. Colin Allred was trying to emphasize moderates and kind of move towards the center, and that looks like that's fallen short. So it seems like, you know, Texas has just become such a reliably red state that the strategy in the general election just doesn't seem to have much of an impact.
For sure. And speaking back on that Senate race, it is being dubbed the most expensive campaign in the nation. So for people at home who aren't sure why people's eyes are glued to Texas right now, why is that Senate seat so important?
Well, so the Democrats are at a big disadvantage when it comes to the Senate. And so they want to keep control of the Senate. And so they needed to place a lot of bets, you know, to hope that some of them panned out. And polling data, you know, when it showed a relatively tight race in Texas, there was a lot of emphasis by Democrats that, okay, maybe this is one of the states that we could pull an upset, because they really needed an upset here or in Florida or somewhere to kind of reshuffle the deck and be able to hold on to the Senate.
Dr. Barrett, last question for you. Do you have any surprise prediction on any of the races here in Texas?
No, not really. Nothing I've seen so far, I think, is particularly shocking. Again, I think the real story here is going to be in Pennsylvania to see how things develop as the night progresses.
And of course, we'll be watching that race closely. And as we get ready to take a brief pause, we want to explain what you'll see in the next couple of minutes.
That's right. Thank you so much, Dr. Barrett. Our streaming audience, you're getting the most up-to-date local information online and on our air channel. Those viewers are seeing CBS Network focusing solely on the presidential election.
We will be breaking into our on-air programming to give our viewers an update on those local races. You will also see the update shortly after this brief break. You're watching the CBS 19 Plus Election Night 2024 program. Keep it here. We'll be back with more updates in less than 2 minutes.
Good evening. Here at CBS 19, we are your East Texas election experts. Polls are closed and votes are being tallied as we speak.
Well, let's get a check at some big ticket races, starting with the race for Texas representative for the U.S. Senate. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz is vying for his third term. Right now, Ted Cruz is sitting at 53% versus Colin Allred, who's at 45%. At this time, as we just mentioned, that is what we thought was going to be a close race, but obviously Ted Cruz is way ahead.
Right, Brennan. Texas House District 7 here in East Texas represents Gregg, Harrison, and Marion counties. Incumbent Jay Dean has held the position since 2017. Democratic challenger and businesswoman Marlena Cooper is looking to change that, but right now the race just doesn't look close right now. Jay Dean ahead by 73% of the votes, with Cooper sitting at 27%.
Now let's get a look at Texas House District 6. This represents most of Smith County, that is south of I-20, Tyler, White House, Chapel Hill, Troop, Arp, and Bullard. Republican Daniel Alders is taking on Democrat Cody Grace. At this time, Alders is sitting at 73% and Cody Grace at 27%.
Now let's head to Upshur County, where residents are voting on the sheriff's position. Longtime Sheriff Larry Webb has held the position since 2017, but has worked in other areas of law enforcement across the region prior to being sheriff. But challenger Brandon Williams is looking to unseat him. Right now, though, Webb is sitting at 83%, with Williams behind at 17% of the votes.
And in Smith County, residents in Precinct 3 will have a new commissioner. Incumbent Terry Phillips lost to Republican challenger J. Scott Herod during the March primaries after 15 years as commissioner. Herod is now taking on Edith Mayfield Wilson for that position. At this time, Herod is at 80% and Wilson is at 20%.
That's right. We'll continue to have live updates throughout the night as more results roll in. For the very latest on local and state races, head to CBS 19 Plus for our streaming show that ends at 10 o'clock tonight.
And for more on the presidential race, CBS News will continue to bring you that election coverage after this short break. Stay with us.
Welcome back to CBS19's election night coverage. Hey, if you're joining us just now, if you're coming from broadcast, tell your friends that if they're missing us here to turn into CBS 19 Plus because we're streaming from 8 until 10 tonight. Right now, it is looking like Ted Cruz is projected to win the Senate seat here in Texas. I know we've all assumed that it was going to be a close race between him and Colin Allred.
But that obviously wasn't the case. I mean, right now we're looking where Ted Cruz is at 53% and Colin Allred is at 45%. Our political experts have been weighing in all throughout the night why this is the case, why we're seeing the numbers that they are, who really had a big impact at the poll or the voter turnout. We're, of course, going to continue to follow that story. And I want to mention that Greg Abbott has actually just posted on his X account saying, quote, "Congratulations, Senator Ted Cruz, on your big win. Senator Cruz will continue to defend Texas' values of freedom, liberty, and prosperity in the U.S. Senate. Working together, we will keep Texas, Texas." And that's kind of really been Governor Abbott as he's been pushing for voters to go for Ted Cruz. He's been saying, keep Texas, Texas. His political ads have also made that message very strong. That's been really the theme of this election cycle.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that all night long and hopefully hearing from a political expert to kind of weigh in on that race. But for now, we're going to check in with CBS 19's Robert De La Garza, who's at Rick's on the Square at the Republican Watch Party. And we're actually going to hear from Congressman Nathaniel Moran, who is running unopposed this election. So his spot is safe, but we do want to hear from him as well. Good evening, Robert.
That's right. So we're here at the Rick's on the Square still. We will have Nathaniel Moran right here, U.S. Representative, Texas 1st District. One of the largest districts in the area, serves 17 counties. So let's go ahead and look over to Nathaniel Moran. I mean, fun evening tonight. A lot of people in the building. An uncontested seat for yourself. Tell me what it's like. I mean, the emotions for yourself as an uncontested seat, going through this evening.
Well, I'm certainly humbled to represent what I think is the best congressional district in the United States. That's the 1st District of Texas. It's a rural district, covers from Tyler up to Texarkana, over to Louisiana, and everything in between. The people here are tough-minded, hard-working individuals. They deserve a congressman that does the same thing in Washington, D.C. for them, and I'm so humbled to be able to be that person.
Okay, an uncontested seat. I mean, you've had the idea that you're going to be in this seat for a while now. So, I mean, what are some plans moving forward for your first year in Congress?
Well, the goal is to enhance security, prosperity, and liberty for not just East Texans and Texans, but all across the United States. We need the trifecta tonight to do that. We need a new president, a new Senate, and we need to keep control of the House because we've got to reverse the horrible policies of the Biden administration from the past 4 years. We know Kamala Harris is going to continue those policies, so we need to make sure President Trump gets elected tonight. It's not just what matters with the elections here in East Texas or across the state. We need the entire United States to get behind President Trump and the conservative agenda.
And to that point, I mean, we did hear just a few moments ago about the U.S. Senator race, Ted Cruz. I mean, just tell me a little bit about that. That choice is final, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm so happy that Senator Cruz has gotten reelected. And it is in large part due to the large turnout of conservative voters in rural Texas. That's what really commands a victory in Texas these days for conservative is what are you going to do in East Texas and West Texas? And East Texas came out for Ted Cruz, and as a result of that, he got a great victory tonight.
All right, on that note, U.S. Representative of Texas's 1st District, Nathaniel Moran with us. We'll continue to bring you updates as we come in and interview some more people running in this local races for the Republican Party. Guys, back to you over there in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Robert. Now, yeah, we'll continue to follow that Senate race as we get the official results from CBS News and AP News. But for now, we are going to head back over to our political expert, Dr. Ken Week with UT Tyler. Good evening, Dr. Wink. How are you?
Well, thanks.
Well, Dr. Wink, we just heard from U.S. Congressman Nathaniel Moran talking about the defeat between Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. I guess, do we forecast this race to be as far off as it was? I know initially we were saying this was going to be a tight race.
Yeah, everyone had it tight. The UT Tyler poll had it by Cruz up by 2. I think the typical polling firms had him up by 4, maybe 5, something like that. So he did much better than expected, and even Trump, I think, did much better than expected. And what I think happened is the Republican efforts to get people to turn out early, I think, paid huge dividends. Clearly, there was more enthusiasm for the Republican ticket than we may have expected, and I think the turnout differentials between the Republicans and the Democrats will be quite large when we go back and look at this in retrospect.
Absolutely, Dr. Wink. Now, in your opinion, what has made Cruz and his campaign so successful this election season?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, just there are more people in the state of Texas who identify as Republicans than Democrats, and so when you have a really partisan election season like you did in 2024 with the presidential election result, people really stick close to the party. And we are in a period of time, and we have been for quite some time, where Republicans probably have a 5-point advantage before the race ever starts, just in terms of party identification. I also think uh, Trump the things that Trump emphasized are really things that were very important to Texas voters in terms of policy issues. I think this was just an election where the policies really favored the Republicans, and we saw it when we asked people. They said border security was number one, and they said abortion was number two, but it was split evenly between the pro-choice and the pro-life sides. And then inflation was number three, and so those are winning issues for Republicans right now.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Dr. Wink. I mean, we know, as you just mentioned, the Texas voters, kind of what their theme is, what they care about. That really wasn't the theme of Colin Allred's campaign. I mean, he really talked about abortion and reproductive rights. Do you think that hurt him in this race?
In retrospect, possibly so. I think that is a winning issue for Democrats in many states, and I understand why they emphasized it. What our polling showed, when you go back and look at our June poll, abortion was like the third most important issue on people's minds, and it was almost those that thought it was very important were clearly on the pro-choice side. But I think the more the national Democrats and Colin Allred focused on abortion, I think it really mobilized the pro-life side, at least in the state of Texas. And that may not be true in Pennsylvania and in Michigan and in California, but I think that's what happened in Texas.
All righty, Dr. Ken Wink, we appreciate your insight. We're actually going to be hearing from Senator Ted Cruz, who's actually at a watch party in downtown Houston. This is actually going to be the first time we're going to be hearing from him, and let's go and take a listen right now.
And they're still counting votes. It also looks very likely that we're going to have a Republican Senate next year. And I believe, and I hope and pray, that Donald Trump will be reelected as President of the United States. I want to say thank you, number one, to my extraordinary wife, Heidi, my best friend in the world. Such an amazing partner on this magic carpet ride of life. And I want to say thank you to our two beautiful and amazing girls, Caroline and Catherine. You know, politics at times exacts a price on the family. And I want to say I am so grateful for their love and support, and you guys are amazing. Thank you. I also want to give a special shout out to Alexis Nungary. Alexis, thank you for your incredible courage speaking out for your precious Jocelyn, and your courage has made such a profound difference in this nation. We're going to. I also want to thank all the Democrats across Texas who crossed over and supported my campaign. Including especially Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg, who has stood strong for prosecuting violent criminals. And I want to thank every Texan across our great state who has stood with us in this fight, who worked and who fought for Texas. I want to congratulate Colin Allred on a hard-fought campaign. And I want to say to all of those who didn't support me, you have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights. But tonight, the people of Texas have spoken. And their message rings clear as a bell across our great state. Texas will remain Texas. You know, the media were ready to write off Texas. And Chuck Schumer poured in more than $100 million to our state. Well, I want to say thank you, Chuck. And I hope we win a few more Senate seats tonight because you wasted so much money in Texas. They deployed every trick, every lie, and every Hollywood celebrity they could find. Chuck Schumer tried to buy this Senate seat like it was a piece of Manhattan real estate. But he learned what we've always known, that Texas isn't for sale. And Texans can't be bought. Amen. Over the last 2 years, I've traveled every corner of this state, from the Panhandle to the Valley, from deep East Texas to far in West Texas. We have traveled 9,094 miles, 53 rallies all over the state of Texas. I've worn out my boots, at times my voice, and certainly the patience of my incredible political team, who did an amazing job on this campaign, and I think is the very best team in all of politics. And what I found traveling the state of Texas was worth every single mile. Because everywhere I went, I found something that gives me profound hope. Common sense isn't dead. It is alive and well in Texas. Everywhere I went, I met Texans who share a simple dream: to keep their families safe, to keep their freedom secure, and to keep their Texas values strong. Tonight, we are witnessing incredible results, especially with Hispanics across the state of Texas. And we are seeing tonight generational change in South Texas. The results tonight, this decisive victory, should shake the Democrat establishment to its core. I've spent months in the Rio Grande Valley, sitting in family kitchens, visiting small businesses, praying in local churches. And let me tell you what I learned. Our Hispanic communities aren't just leaving the Democrat Party. They're coming home to conservative values they never left. They understand something the liberal elites never will. There's nothing progressive about open borders. There is nothing compassionate about chaos. And there is nothing Latino about letting criminals roam free. And just for good measure, we're not tacos. We're small business owners who know that lower taxes means more jobs. We're parents who know that secure borders mean safe neighborhoods. And we're families who know that Texas energy independence means prosperity for everyone. And I found this same awakening to common sense everywhere I traveled. I saw it in the eyes of Texas mothers, tired of being lectured to about their values, their faith, and their children's education. I heard it from energy workers in the Permian Basin and the Eagle Ford Shale, men and women who know that American energy independence isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about national security and freedom. It's about families being able to fill their gas tanks without emptying their bank accounts. Look, common sense isn't complicated. It tells us that borders have to mean something. It tells us that laws must be enforced, that children deserve innocence, and that prosperity comes from work, not a handout. And here's what common sense tells us above all, that the people who built Texas, whether their families came 5 generations ago or 5 months ago, understand Texas better than any social engineer in Washington ever will. When I return to the Senate, I carry with me not just a victory, but a mandate. A mandate from the people of Texas. And let me be crystal clear about what that mandate means. First, we must secure the border. Not with empty promises, but with concrete and steel and law and order, and with the unshakable resolve from knowing we are protecting those we love. The cartels who poison our communities, the traffickers who prey on the innocent, their days are numbered.
Well, that is Senator Ted Cruz, who is talking at his watch party in downtown Houston, where he has just won over a challenger Democrat, Colin Allred. And as we get ready to take a brief pause, we want to explain what you'll see in the next couple of minutes. Our streaming audience are getting the most up-to-date local information online, and on our air channel, those viewers are seeing CBS Network focusing solely on the presidential election. We will be breaking into our on-air programming to give our viewers an update on the local races. You will also see that update shortly after this brief break. You are watching the CBS 19+ Election Night 2024 program. Keep it here. We'll be back with more updates in less than 2 minutes.
evening. Here at CBS 19, we are your East Texas election experts. Polls are closed now and votes are being tallied as we speak.
And let's get a check at some of the local races we're watching tonight, starting with a race for Texas representative for the U.S. Senate. And we're going to talk about it all night. The big ticket item that was on your ballot, the U.S. Senate race. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz is vying for his third term. He is facing Dallas Congressman Colin Allred, and this race has caught national headlines as well. And at this time, we're seeing that Ted Cruz has beaten Colin Allred. Ted Cruz is at 54% and Colin Allred at 44%.
It's important to note that the AP nor CBS have called this race as of yet. All right,
you have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights.
Now let's head to Cherokee County, where voters in the city's first district are picking their next council member. With 9% of the vote remaining, or reporting rather, incumbent councilor James Bendorf currently leads challenger Ben Mims.
Yeah, we can't see Ben there just yet, but in the city of Henderson, city council seat for District 2 is on the ballot. Incumbent Reginald Weatherton has held the seat since 2022 and has also served from 2008 to 2018. Michael Searcy is the challenger, and at this time he's leading with 52% over Weatherton.
Meanwhile, in Smith County ESD 2, District 4, Commissioner Johnny Brown is trying to keep his seat over Robert Templin. Currently, Brown is at 79% and Robert Templin at 21%.
Now let's head to Texas House District 7, which represents Greg Harrison and Marion counties. Incumbent Jay Dean has held the position since 2017. He currently leads 74 to his Democratic challenger at 26%. We'll continue to have live updates throughout the night as more results roll in. For the latest on local and state races, head to CBS 19 Plus for our streaming show that ends at 10 p.m.
And for more on the presidential race, CBS News will continue to bring you that election coverage after this short break. Stay with us. Well, thanks for watching CBS 19 streaming election special coverage here. We are following several races tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Another race that we're following very closely is the race for Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3 among all the races that we're following locally and at the state level. Now, Terry Phillips has held this seat the past 3 terms from 2009 to 2020 and is on his way out after losing the Republican nomination in a runoff election this past May.
Now it's J. Scott Herod campaigning against Edith Mayfield Wilson. While Herrod's focus is the expenditure of taxpayer dollars, Mayfield Wilson is focused her campaign on the roads in our community to continue promoting growth in Smith County.
I want to listen and I want to be able to focus on the community and their needs, not just in one place, but in all areas.
I want to make sure that we're creating a precinct and ultimately a county where everyone feels they can thrive in their current situation.
Herod started raising cattle when he was young and felt the need for the community to have access to all natural meats. So in 2014, he opened up the ranch Cut Beef in Tyler. And Mayfield Wilson is a retired teacher of Tyler ISD for 17 years. And we want to go ahead and bring in our Ayanna Aird, who is right there now with Miss Wilson. And Ayanna, what can you tell us?
Almost more importantly, that she matched Joe Biden.
Yes, Brendan, so I'm here with Edith Mayfield Wilson. She is a Democratic candidate for Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3. Now, she also talked to me a little bit how this is the first time she's ever ran for a political position. So, Ms. Wilson, kind of talk about how your campaign has gone in Smith County and a couple things you've learned during your campaign.
Okay, sure. Do I need to hold it?
No.
Okay, thank you. It's actually been pretty educational, actually informative. I started out with, as far as running, I wanted to make a difference. I looked around in my community and Precinct 3 as a whole, and I just basically wanted to make a difference. So on that road to where I am now, it was just basically more of interest, and actually I would be remiss if I did not thank the ones that helped me through this. I mean, I did not do it alone, and so I will say that. And it takes a lot of people to get you further down. But I would say to anybody that's passionate about their communities, and as far as their precincts or whatever, it's get out there and actually be a part of it. I mean, at least be a voice for those that speak and may not have the tenacity, I'll say, to actually come out and speak.
And how are you feeling as results come in tonight?
I'm nervous, and I am, I guess I'm more nervous than anything at this point. I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm a little disappointed, but I'm optimistic as far as that's concerned. I feel that if my opponent wins, I will look forward to seeing him make the changes that I so desire to have.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Edith. I'm gonna send it back to y'all.
All right, thanks so much, Ayanna. Let's go ahead and head over to Upshur County, where residents have made their decision on the sheriff's position. It looks like Sheriff Larry Webb has been declared a winner. He held the position since 2017, but has worked in other areas of law enforcement across the region. Prior to being sheriff, he has 83% of the votes. Challenger Democratic candidate Brandon Williams was looking to unseat him. He got 17% of those votes. So, you know, it looks like the county residents there are looking forward to continuing their relationship with Larry Webb and the continued security that they've had under his leadership.
Well, and we've heard it from our political experts, Mariah. I mean, we didn't think any surprises. I mean, obviously, he is a familiar face, Sheriff Larry Webb. Obviously, you know, he is well versed in what he is doing out there in Upshur County, and it showed in the numbers. Obviously, there is a big lead there at 83% to 17%, as you just mentioned, in that race. So he's mentioned a lot of priorities that he has and a lot of key issues that he is focused on as he kind of moves on into this next cycle of election here.
For sure. I think it's really interesting that one of his key issues was mental health in the county. I haven't seen that one on our election guide yet, and I think that's really important because it tackles the underlying issue sometimes of some crime in areas in the community.
Well, we've reported on that several times too, talking about that, jails are not a mental health facility.
Yeah.
We're so quick to put these, people who break the law into jail, and that's obviously not the answer. But right now, we want to go ahead and check in with our Robert De La Garza. We've got team coverage throughout the night. Robert, what are you seeing out there tonight?
So we were at Rick's on the Square for the Republican Watch Party, but now we walk just a little block over to Prime 102, where Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3 J. Scott Herod is holding his party, watch party. So we're going to go ahead and bring him in here. J. Scott Herod, we're talking to you about the seat that you're running for. As I told you before, we did see the numbers. We're looking at 78 to 21 against your Democratic challenger, Edith Mayfield Wilson. So tell me a little bit about, what this night has brought to you. How are you feeling overall? Hearing those numbers, where do you stand?
Well, the first thing is I appreciate everybody that runs for office. It's a major responsibility, and Commissioner Phillips has done 16 years for Smith County. That's to be applauded. And then you look at the fact that someone else ran in terms of the Democrat, and I think they deserve to be applauded. I'm excited about the opportunity to come out and serve the people, and I look forward to January when I can get in there and talk to people.
And you mentioned Terry Phillips, who was in-house for over 15 years, as you mentioned, and you beat him in the primaries. Just tell me a little bit about what difference you bring to the table, maybe some stability. What are you looking forward to in your seat there?
Yeah, Commissioner Phillips has been there for a long time, and that's great. And again, I think that deserves to be applauded. But when you look at the seat, I think you're going to see a lot of consistency in the terms of the fiscal responsibility. That's what I want to continue to bring, and I want to work with the people throughout Smith County and make the whole county strong. It starts with Precinct 3. That's going to be my focus. And then as I work with my other fellow peers, making sure that we're representing them all well.
And we did hear about U.S. Senator Ted Cruz getting that vote being final now. The way he is, coming in for another term. Just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on their Republican being in the U.S. Senate once again.
Well, I like the fact that we've got strong family values that we all bring in, and that's not to say that no one else does. It's just the fact that what things matter to me that we're all representing, and I want to continue to do that, and I'm excited that people that are representing similar values are continuing to work their way through the politics, and to me, that's the key. And we all need to work together to get along and make some decisions that make good decisions, make good sense for everybody.
With a comfortable lead right now, what are the next following days look for you as you go into, your seat eventually?
Yeah, so until the final vote is in, I don't want to take anything for granted. I take everything very seriously, and I want to make sure that we're representing the people well. So the next few days, we'll get the final results, and then we'll work forward towards what the next steps are. I'm going to continue to learn. I've continued to be out with the people in Precinct 3 and beyond throughout Smith County, learning how our county operates. It's a huge, huge business when you look at county government, and I want to continue to get out, learn, and understand what's going on and what I can do to help support and what I can do to encourage change.
Okay, Republican candidate for Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3, J. Scott Herod, thank you for joining us. Heading back to you guys in the studio, Robert De La Garza.
All right. Thanks.
Robert, thank you. Well, we want to keep on that conversation of the commissioner seat. We have been talking a lot about the headlines for that over the, since the primary for this race too. And I'd like to mention that about J. Scott Herod and how he mentioned his opponent that he did beat, Terry Phillips, who obviously is a well-known name here in the Smith County area. Back during the primaries, he actually won 90% of the vote here in Smith County versus Terry Phillips, who received 10%.
It seems like once J. Scott Herod, because as you guys know, if you've been keeping up with CBS19, his family has also been in headlines. So it's interesting to see that J. Scott Herod was able to defeat incumbent Terry Phillips after serving for as long as Phillips did. So,
well, and as you mentioned, the legal trouble that the Phillips family has faced, we've been covering that here on our newscast as well. But when we talked to Herod about that, he kind of does not bring that up. That is something that he has stayed away even during his campaign. He wants to, move the page forward. He doesn't want to look back at all that.
I think he respects him more than anything, and at least this gives Phillips time to be with his family during this time, because it's not over.
And he thanked him for his service too, and what he did here in Smith County during his time as the long-standing Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3.
For sure. So did his competitor, Miss Edith Mayfield Wilson. She just spoke with Ayanna Aird, and it seems like they both are thanking anyone that steps up to fill those public office roles. A lot of times we all talk about how we feel on social media, but it's really those people that get out and put their names on the ballots to really be there for their community.
And really, we haven't, obviously, J. Scott Herod has a nice lead ahead of him entering into election night here as the polls are still being counted, or the ballots are still being counted. And we've seen that all throughout the election here in Texas, that there really wasn't any surprises.
Yeah, for sure. J. Scott Herod is a well-known business owner, as you guys know, and his top issue is taxpayer dollars, so that goes hand in hand. So I'm interested to see what that looks like out there in Precinct 3. Edith Mayfield Wilson, she was a retired Tyler ISD teacher of 17 years, so of course education was probably high on her list, but road maintenance. I know we've all driven the roads across Tyler and seen some potholes, so both of those key issues are definitely important to voters.
And we're still following that race and several other races across East Texas. We want to go listen into our producers on what race we're going to be covering now. Alrighty, now we're going to look at the results coming in from Smith County ESD 2 Commissioner District 1. That is the race between Brent Dominy and Quint Balcom. Right now, Brent is sitting at 73% and Balcom at 27%.
Not a close race there. It seems like we've all been anticipating some closer races this season. We're going to look at ESD 2 Commissioner District 4 with Johnny Brown sitting at 79% of the votes here at 9:43 p.m. against his challenger, Robert Templin, who has 21%. And Brown was looking to keep his seat. Looks like he has it.
And as we just mentioned moments ago, J. Scott Herod is sitting at 78% versus Edith Mayfield Wilson at 22%. Obviously, Herod has captured that nomination from voters here in Smith County.
For sure. Well, election night can come with a lot of disinformation, as you guys know. And as the polls close, there are more threats than ever. We'll have more details on that just after this break on CBS 19 Plus Election Night. Welcome back to Election Night on CBS 19 Plus. Election night, as we know, can come with a lot of disinformation. As the polls close, there are more threats than ever on the internet, with people looking to misinform our audiences. That's why our parent company, Tegna, started a brand called Verify. You've seen all those videos on our air before.
Yeah, now we want to bring in Casey Decker, who's joining us live from Portland, Oregon. And Casey, thanks for being here. First question I have for you, this has been a very tight race leading to today, and we're still waiting for a lot of results, especially in swing states. Is that normal, and what should our viewers know about election result timelines?
Yeah, it is completely normal for these results to take a while. It usually can take a couple of days after election day, sometimes even a couple of weeks as these results get closer and closer with seemingly every election. It's part of the official process, though. We don't really know when states will give us their final results, but we know what the deadline is, what the absolute latest they could be is. And we know that because of federal law for presidential races, the latest is December 11th. So that's worst case scenario. We'll know by December 11th. There's a good chance we'll know before then, but the delays that you're seeing aren't really delays. They're just the normal process. It's how things typically go when the races are this close.
Wow, you said December 11th potentially. What are some of the reasons why election results might come in after election night?
Well, the results are coming in right now, but the final certified results might not be until December, just because that's the way various states do their processes in terms of canvassing county by county, then reporting up to the state and certifying that. But some of the reasons why certain states might take a little longer than others, for instance, there could be a lot more mail-in ballots, or there could be laws saying you're not allowed to start counting ballots until a certain time, or there could be just staffing issues at certain counties. So it varies state by state, sometimes even county by county.
For sure, Casey. One other question. What's the process for counting those provisional ballots?
Well, provisional ballots are almost counted just like every other ballot, except there's an extra step before they can count those ballots. Provisional ballots, of course, are ballots that are given to people where there's any uncertainty about their eligibility. That's required by federal law that they're allowed to get those ballots. Those ballots then have to go through a verification process. So elections officials will make sure that that person is indeed eligible to be a voter before that ballot will be counted. Again, the timelines on that can vary by state in terms of when those ballots are counted, but they're usually, a few days, maybe a week at most, and then they also will go through the certification process just like all the other ballots. That's not different for provisional ballots.
And Casey, another thing we've been following, another top story, obviously the polls just closed several hours ago here in Texas, but another top story across other states is bomb threats that had been made. We know your team is looking into this. Is it that something has to do with Russian interference? What are you learning?
Well, so far, all we know is that none of these bomb threats are credible. All of the officials in those states have said none of the bomb threats were credible. There were a couple instances where polling locations had to close for a little bit just until they could make sure that the threat wasn't credible. And in those instances, we're told that elections officials allowed the polling location to have extended hours to make sure everybody's vote was heard.
Casey, lastly for you, obviously somebody's going to be upset tomorrow as those results continue to trickle in. Do you foresee that we're going to see political violence like we saw 4 years ago?
I don't know if I could answer that. We usually try to get things sourced and verified before we bring that information to you. So I don't really think I could make any prediction on that. We'll have to see.
All righty, Casey Decker with our National Verified team. We appreciate your insight and have a good night. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Casey Decker. We are going to go ahead and send things over to our break, but as we get ready to take that brief pause, we do want to explain what you'll see in the next couple of minutes.
All righty, well, our streaming audience are getting the most up-to-date local information online and on over the air channel. Those viewers are seeking CBS Network, focusing solely on the presidential election. We'll be breaking into our on-air programming to give our viewers an update on those local races. We'll also see that update shortly after this break. You're watching the CBS 19 Plus Election Night 2024 program. Keep it here. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Here at CBS 19, we are your East Texas election experts. As you guys know, closed across the U.S. and votes are being tallied right now.
And let's get a check at some of the local races we're watching tonight, starting with results for Upshur County Sheriff.
That's right. Let's head over to Upshur County. There we have residents who are voting on the sheriff's position. Sheriff Larry Webb has held the position since 2017, but has worked in other areas of law enforcement across the region prior to being sheriff. Challenger Brandon Williams was looking to unseat him, but it looks like Larry Webb has 83% of those votes, and he has been announced as the winner. Brandon Bear Williams only had 17%.
In Smith County, residents in Precinct 3 will have a new commissioner. Incumbent Terry Phillips lost to Republican challenger J. Scott Herod during the March primaries after 15 years. Herod is now taking on Edith Mayfield Wilson for that position. As we know, Herod has got a large lead over Wilson with 78% of the vote and Wilson 22%.
That's right. Let's go to a hot ticket item on the Texas ballot. That's the U.S. Senate race. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz has beat Democratic candidate Colin Allred. CBS News projected that as of 10 minutes ago. Now, Allred is a Dallas congressman, and at this time, Cruz has beat him. We have 54% at Allred's 44%. Our Jesus Martinez spoke with Texas representatives for the U.S. House, Nathaniel Moran, tonight about the big race.
I have a great relationship with both of our U.S. senators, both John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, and I have no doubt that Ted Cruz has proved himself over the last 6 years in this term to be able to return to the United States Senate. I think he's going to see a great victory tonight. Colin Allred is not going to beat Ted Cruz.
Now let's get a look at Texas House District 6. This represents most of Smith County. That's south of I-20, Tyler, White House, Chapel Hill, Troop, Arp, and Bullard. Republican Daniel Alders is taking on Democrat Cody Grace. At this time, Alders is 73%, Cody Grace 27%.
We'll continue to have live updates throughout the night as more results roll in. For the latest on local and state races, head to CBS 19 Plus for our streaming show that ends at 10 tonight.
And for more on the presidential race, CBS News will continue to bring you that election coverage after this short break. Stay with us. Good evening. Thanks for joining us for our election night coverage here on CBS 19+. I'm Brennan Gurley.
And I'm Mariah Conna. Thank you for trusting us to get your latest results across East Texas all evening long. Now, just moments ago, CBS News projected Ted Cruz to win his re-election bid over Democratic challenger Colin Allred. Let's go ahead and take a look at that hot ticket item. As you guys know, it was dubbed the most expensive race in the nation. Currently, Ted Cruz is the projected winner, according to CBS News. As you guys know, this would mark Cruz's third term as the U.S. Senator here in Texas. Colin Allred, as you guys know, is the Democratic challenger out of Dallas.
We want to go and bring in now our Jesus Martinez, who joins us live in Smith County tonight. Jesus, what can you tell us?
Hey, good evening, Madam Brennan. Let me tell you guys, CBS News just projected that, but a little bit before that, another news outlet also projected that Ted Cruz is the winner of that Senate race. And whenever that happened, a big cheer here at the Republican Watch Party at Rick's on the Square here in downtown Tyler. And everyone here saying, you know, this is sort of expected that it was going to happen. I think what wasn't expected, and you guys have been talking about it with our experts, is how big the margin of that win was going to be, about 10% if I'm listened correctly to those interviews. But here we spoke to Nathaniel Moran, of course. He said this is a big win for them as they'll continue to work together. Of course, Moran in the House, and of course, Senator Cruz now in his third term working in the Senate. Our sister station in Houston was at his watch party out in Houston. Let's take a listen to what he had to say after he was declared the winner of this third term for Texas Senate.
But tonight, the people of Texas have spoken. And their message rings clear as a bell across our great state. Texas will remain Texas.
And something he mentioned there, the people of Texas spoke, that something Republican chair for Smith County, David Stein, said is that he personally got a message from the Cruz campaign telling him to tell East Texas and Tyler here, thank you for coming out in whips and supporting, and those numbers and votes were reflected in these votes. As per the Colin Allred watch party in Dallas, one of our reporters from our sister station in Dallas is there, and we haven't heard from Colin Allred himself just yet, but she did say she is there and said that there was a unified groan whenever Ted Cruz was named the winner. So a different contrast there than it is here, but again, here in Smith County, no surprise, but a big win for Republicans in this area.
All right, thanks so much, Jesus. And just as we mentioned, it's looking like, according to CBS News, that incumbent Ted Cruz will be the projected winner for the U.S. Senate. Now, according to CBS News, Vice President Kamala Harris has 46% of the electoral votes. Former President Donald Trump with 52%. And we do want to note CBS News is tracking this race from a national level. Polls just closed on the West Coast, so we're starting to see some results come in from Washington, Oregon, and California. And just moments ago, CBS News was reporting that Georgia is leaning red. They're still voting in Alaska and Hawaii. So if you want to follow that, tune into CBS on your TV provider, that is, for sure.
All righty, well, we want to go ahead and bring in political expert Dr. John Barrett at LaTourneau University, who's been providing us insight throughout the night. Dr. Barrett, we all came into this night knowing it was going to be a long night. We've been told that the presidential race was probably not going to be called, and it looks like that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be a long night, although there's a lot of signs that things are moving in Trump's direction. Take Virginia, for example. This is a state they should quickly call for the Democrats and then move on. And it's still in the too close to call category. Now, I think it's still going to go for Harris in the end, but this is an indicator that Trump is doing better than expected. And so it seems to be getting kind of rough for the Democrats out there.
According to AP News, with the electoral votes right now, Pennsylvania, one of those battleground states, it looks like Trump has 51% to Kamala Harris's 47% in Pennsylvania, which you mentioned, and our other political expert mentioned this night, that Pennsylvania is likely one of the most important states in that race. Can you reiterate again to our viewers why Pennsylvania is so important in this presidential election?
Sure. Because there's only so many states that both campaigns have a chance of winning, and Pennsylvania is, to mathematically get up to 270 it's very difficult to find a path that doesn't go through Pennsylvania. And that's why, all eyes have been really focused on Pennsylvania, looking in particular at some of the bellwether counties there to see how they vote and how things are playing out. And again, Trump is ahead, and there's still a good bit of vote left to count. But the path for Harris is getting a little narrow there.
Dr. Barrett, we talk about how Donald Trump has more of a lead during this election cycle than what he did when he was vying for the presidential seat there back in 2020. What sets him apart this election cycle from what we saw just 4 years ago?
Well, the dynamics change, right? Obviously, the last time around, we were in the midst of the pandemic, and there was a lot of frustration over that. Now you fast forward 4 years, he's been out of office, and people have had time to get frustrated with the Democrats, right? You kind of have this counter-cyclical nature to politics sometimes, and so part of that's what's going on. But at a deeper level, what you're seeing is a realignment that's kind of taking place, right? Trump has been able to pull in a good number of Latino voters. And so this is a bloc that has traditionally gone for the Democrats. And so the Republican coalition is just starting to get a little more solid, and that gives them more advantages.
But good point, Dr. Barrett. We just heard from Senator Ted Cruz at his watch party in downtown Houston, and he mentioned the exact same thing, talking about that Latino vote. He said he spent a lot of time in South Texas, and that really helped him in his campaign. But, another thing with a lot of these for Colin Allred and for Ted Cruz in the U.S. Senate race, and also for Donald Trump talking about the presidential race, the young voters really haven't turned out from what we've seen so far. Why is that?
Well, young voters are always a very challenging bloc to get motivated and out to the polls. Their life is sometimes not quite as sedentary, right? They move around a lot, and that can make it a little trickier to get registered to vote. A lot of times they're just not as engaged in the process as somebody that's more settled, again, that has children and all of this sort of thing. And so it's always just a challenge to get young people to vote.
And something else, too, we mentioned about these polls and what we're seeing right now. Nevada is too close to call right now. This is just like we mentioned at the top of this newscast, just how close a lot of these states, it's just too close to call.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a late night, and what we're going to see is, again, the doors slowly start to close as more of the vote comes in, and it becomes apparent, okay, even though it's close, we can now make some judgment calls on which way these swing states are going, and it still may be Wednesday or maybe even Thursday, but we'll see how things play out.
Dr. Barrett, I've got to ask you, I know it's the million-dollar question. Everybody wants to know who is going to be the president here in the United States come January, but who do you think is going to win this race?
Well, I think it's starting to look good for Trump right now. Again, kind of reading the tea leaves and looking at a lot of the county level data, Trump seems to be chipping away in enough areas that he's looking like he's in a pretty good position.
All righty, Dr. John Barrett from LeTourneau University, we appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Well, Texas House District 7 represents Gregg, Harrison, Marion counties, and we're going to take a look at the race there. Incumbent Jay Dean has held the position since 2017. Democratic challenger and businesswoman Marlena Cooper is looking to change that. Both candidates support an increase in public school funding, and both oppose school vouchers. Right now, Dean has 73% of the votes there.
And Texas House District 6 represents most of Smith County. That is south of I-20. Tyler, White House, Chapel Hill, Troop, Arp, and Bullard. Incumbent Matt Schaefer is not running for another term in this district. Daniel Alders is taking on Cody Grace, who lost to Schaefer in the 2020 elections. And we've got our team coverage out there at both of those races. Right now, Daniel Alders is at 73%, and then Cody Grace at 27%. We want to go ahead and check in now with our Robert De La Garza, who's actually, as we mentioned, at one of those watch parties with Colin Alders. And so, Robert, what are you hearing from those that are at that watch party tonight?
Yeah, Brendan. So we were at the Prime 102 for J. Scott Harrod's, the Smith County Commissioner, Precinct 3. But now we're back over here at Rick's on the Square, checking out. Things are starting to slow down just a bit here, but people are still in the building as of now. Like you said, a big lead for Daniel Alders right now, and so we're going to go ahead and try and check in on him here soon, see how he's feeling with that lead going in. But as of now, still people here at this party, and just trying to talk to as many Republicans who are who are securing their seats right now. But as of now, party's still going on, and we're going to catch up with you guys later.
Mentioned Daniel Alders has got a strong lead in this race, as we just heard from our Robert De La Garza.
For sure. We want to take a look at the Democratic Watch Party because just like Robert mentioned, the party isn't stopping over there either. Our CBS19's Ayanna Aird is live over there. Ayanna, who are you with? I see someone standing next to you.
Yes, I'm with Hector Garza. He's a Democratic chair here, and just like you said, the party isn't stopping over there. Same as over here, we're outside right now because it's literally pretty much shoulder to shoulder. So Hector Garza, how do you feel about the turnout here at Culture ETX?
I tell you what, we're excited. It's loud in there. I'm glad we came out here because we wouldn't have been able to hear each other. I feel really good. You know, the results are trickling in. We're waiting for that last surge, and we're getting them, so we feel really good about this. Really confident about tonight.
Yeah, so kind of you touched on it a little bit, but how are you feeling as, polls are coming in, the election is still happening, and then Ted Cruz just won the Texas State Senate seat?
Our hats off to them. They won a good race. They ran a good race. I know that Colin Allred ran a very hard campaign, but again, the people of Texas have spoken, the people of Smith County have spoken, and he was elected. So, it's a little disheartening. It's disappointing to us. We weren't expecting it, especially by that margin. But hey, at the end of the day, we've got a winner, we've got a loser. So we respect the winner.
Yes, and right across the street is Rick's, and you were there earlier. You had a conversation with David Stein. What'd you tell him?
I went and congratulated him. I really did. He worked just as hard as I did. His precinct chairs worked, and his volunteers worked just as hard as we did. And it was in order to go say congratulations to him. They deserve it. They worked hard for it. We wanted it. We really did. We didn't get it. We'll go back to drawing board, and we'll try it again.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Hector Garza, for taking the time and interviewing.
Absolutely.
Back to y'all.
Right, perfect. Thank you so much, Ayanna, and thank you, Hector. In Smith County, we've just learned that Republican J. Scott Harrod has defeated Marlena Cooper for Smith County Commissioner Precinct 3. Actually, it's Edith Mayfield Wilson, He has 78% of the votes there. It's been called. Edith Mayfield Wilson with 22%.
Well, we want to take a break from the politics and go to our chief meteorologist, Brett Anthony, with a quick look at the forecast.
East Texas could see some patches of fog overnight, especially in deep East Texas. We had quite a bit of rainfall. The 24-hour rainfall totals, with the rain ending earlier today, looks something like this, anywhere from about 2 3/4 of an inch at Natchez to just over 2 1/4 inches at Jacksonville, just a little more than 2 inches at Emerald Bay. When you look around the area here in some of these red areas, you're looking at 2.5 to 4 inches. In the purple areas, 1.5 to about 2.5 inches of rain. So tonight, some fog possible, 51 for the overnight low with a light wind. If you're out of the fog, you've got clear skies and a crisp start. Tomorrow, classic fall day, mainly sunny. Winds will be light and variable. We'll have a high temperature right around 75 in our 3-day forecast, up to 76 on Thursday. Friday, clouds are increasing, 74. We've got a chance for some isolated thunderstorms. A 60% chance by Friday night could impact high school football. We'll talk more about it coming up in the 10-day forecast.
All right, thanks so much, Brett. In the city of Rusk, residents are looking to fill a vacant spot on the city council after the resignation of Councilman John Hood. This is to represent District 1 on the council. Incumbent James Beardroff and Ben Mims are vying for this position. James Beardroff with 55% to Mims 45%.
In the city of Henderson, City Council seat for District 2 is also on the ballot. Incumbent Reginald Weatherton has held that seat since 2022 and has also served from 2008 to 2018. Michael Searcy is the challenger. Right now, you're looking at those results as they come in. And in Smith County ESD 1, Ken Smith, Chris Beller, and Corey Crowell are candidates for Commissioner of District 4. You're seeing Crowell with 47%. He has taken the lead over his two other challengers.
Well, over in ESD2, we have Brent Dominy and Quint Balcom vying for that spot, and it looks like Brent Dominy has confirmed the 73% of the votes to Balcom's 27%.
And in Upshur County, residents are voting on the sheriff's position. Well, actually, Smith County SD2 Commissioner District 4, let's get to that first. Johnny Brown has secured that vote there. He has 78% versus his challenger, Robert Templin, with only 22%.
And in Upshur County, as Brennan just mentioned, residents are voting on the sheriff's position. Incumbent Sheriff Larry Webb has held the position since 2017, but has worked in other areas of law enforcement across the region prior to being sheriff. Challenger Brandon Williams was looking to unseat him, but Larry Webb will stay as the sheriff. He has 83% of the votes.
And as we get ready to take a brief pause, we want to explain what you will see in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, you, our streaming audience, are getting the most up-to-date local information online and over on our air channel. Those viewers are seeing CBS Network, which is focusing solely on the presidential election.
We will be breaking into our on-air programming to give our viewers an update on the local races. We will also see that update shortly after this brief break. You are watching the CBS 19 Plus Election Night 2024 program. Keep it here. We'll be right back.
evening. Here at CBS 19, we are your East Texas election experts. And over an hour ago, more than an hour ago, actually, polls closed across the U.S. and votes are being tallied right now, especially in the West Coast.
Well, let's get a check at some big ticket spots up for grabs tonight. Here's another recap on the big race that was on the Texas ballot. Of course, it's U.S. Senate seat. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz has grabbed his third term. Of course, CBS News has called that race just less than an hour ago, so that's a huge win for him.
Of course, 54 to 44% there. Closer to home in Smith County, residents in Precinct 3 will have a new commissioner. Incumbent Terry Phillips lost to Republican challenger J. Scott Harrod during the March primaries after 15 years as commissioner. Harrod is now defeating Edith Mayfield Wilson for that position. Right now, he's sitting at 78% of the votes, 22% going to Wilson.
Now let's head to the Texas House District 7, which represents Gregg, Harrison, and Marion counties. Incumbent Jay Dean has held that position since 2017. Democratic challenger and businesswoman Marlena Cooper is looking to change that. At this time, Jay Dean is ahead at 73%, Marlena Cooper at 27%.
Now let's head to Cherokee County, where voters in the city's 1st district are picking their next city council member with 100% of the vote, reporting incumbent councilor James Beedroff has beat challenger Ben Mims.
Now let's get a look at Texas House District 6. This represents most of Smith County that is south of I-20, Tyler, White House, Chapel Hill, Troop, Arp, and Bullard. Republican Daniel Alders is taking on Democrat Cody Grace. We've got our team out there at both watch parties. At this time, Alders is at 72% with a big lead over Cody Grace at 28%.
And now to another big race in Upshur County. Residents voted on the sheriff's position. It looks like Sheriff Larry Webb will continue on. He has 83% of the votes to 17% from his challenger, Brandon Williams.
And this just in, the Associated Press is calling the state of North Carolina for former President Donald Trump. That gives him another 16 electoral votes. We'll continue to have live updates throughout the night as more results roll in. For the latest on local and state races, head to CBS19+ for our streaming show that ends at 10.
All right, it's been a long night, hasn't it? Welcome back to our continuing coverage on CBS 19+ on election night.
And I'm Brennan Gurley. Let's get a look at Texas House District 6. This represents most of Smith County, that is south of I-20, Tyler, White House, Chapel Hill, Troop, Arp, and Bullard. Republican Daniel Alders, as we mentioned before, is at 72% versus Cody Grace, who's at 28%. That's where we find our Robert De La Garza, who has been at that watch party for Daniel Alders throughout the night. And Robert, how is Alders feeling tonight?
Yeah, so we're going to find that out. We're back at Rick's. Everyone's still kind of trickling in here or staying in as they're waiting for more results. So I have Texas House District 6, Daniel Alders here. He's going to talk about, what he anticipates. So, as you mentioned, the large lead there is still 72% over his challenger, Democratic challenger. So looking over the Daniel Alders. As you got the numbers in, just tell me a little bit about the anticipation. How are you feeling overall? Large lead. I know you said all the votes are counted, so touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like all the votes are counted. We're very grateful for the support of East Texans across House District 6. Great turnout, very appreciative of that, ready to get to work. It looks like it's going to be a great night overall, and Senator Cruz has definitely outperformed all of the skeptics. I think last I looked, he's up with a 10% lead across the state, and President Trump looks like he's doing well around the rest of the country. So Republicans have turned out in force. People talked about a red wave coming in 2022. Didn't really happen, but it's certainly here today, and we're excited for the future. And the turnout's been fantastic. We're very encouraged.
Okay, well, Texas House District 6, Daniel Alders here with CBS19. Back to you guys out there in the studio.
All righty, Robert, thanks for that live report. Of course, we are following the presidential race, other key races here in East Texas. We want to go in and bring in our Jesus Martinez, who also joins us live in downtown Tyler. Jesus, what can you share with us?
Hey, good evening, guys. I'm here with David Snyder, one more time, the Republican chair of Smith County. David, I know a lot of numbers since we last talked have trickled in. We've talked a lot about local races, but tell us what the consensus is across the state of Texas. I'm sure you're connected with a lot of other Republican chairmen across our state.
It is, and I've texted a lot of them throughout the night. Everybody's really excited. We're having a good night in Texas, all the way around. We've got a state Senate race down in the Corpus Christi area that we're looking good in right now. It's not over, but it's certainly, the numbers are better than we've ever seen them anywhere. And so the chances are really, really good.
I know that's something that's been reflected in the Senate race. David, thank you so much here for joining us. I know you guys had a long night. You guys can rest up as this night winds down.
I'm hopeful it will be a shorter night than not. It's really come down to these 7 swing states, and I'm feeling optimistic about it. Even if we split it, we win. So those are good things, but it's not 2:30 in the morning yet, and that's what worries me.
There we go. Well, you guys are going to be here for a little bit more longer as these results come in. Like we mentioned, that Ted Cruz to the Senate race, winning by about 10%. We still haven't heard from Colin Allred. We do have a reporter there from our sister station in Dallas. Once we hear from him, we'll bring you the latest. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys. All
righty. Jesus Martinez, thanks for that report. And as we close out our coverage tonight, it's important to acknowledge that although this world and its people can be divided on issues and its core, it's important to know more than ever to come together, to listen, and continue to be part of this community.
That's right, Brennan. Regardless of where we stand on the issues, our shared commitment to democracy and progress should unite us all. So we may not always agree, but we all are part of the same community. Here at CBS 19, we are dedicated to putting East Texas first, and we're doing this by continuing to bring you the news, the analysis, and the perspectives that help you stay informed, because an informed public is the foundation of a stronger, more unified future.
And we may not know who the next president is tonight or even tomorrow or in the coming weeks, but we will have the latest as soon as we get it.
That's right. From all of us at CBS 19, we want to thank you for trusting us to be a part of your election coverage tonight on Election Night 2024.